This is how we play.
Anyway, they explored down there and eventually found and released Daniel's character, Fiora, who he occasionally played when he wasn't asleep.
Yeah. Poor Daniel needs less of a life. So he can play D&D with us. So we're still not getting an answer on how long ago that was. That's fine. Whatever. Keep your secrets, DM. So we fight our way down 4 levels. We kill everything we can. On one of the levels, Kilpie opened up a secret door, and we had to run away so it would stop flooding us.
That was hilarious.
That
was a great trap.
That was a great trap.
It's just a door that leads to the ocean.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need that when you're ocean creatures that live in an ocean place. Doing ocean things.
There was a lot of delicious crab. Delicious crabs are, are they size medium or size... I mean, they're big for crabs. They're big crabs.
I think they're small size category.
And they're vicious, and they're like, Yeah,
they're small size
guard dogs,
crabs.
but also they're delicious. So, we eat a lot of delicious crab.
Well, the delicious crab were the minions of the ocean peoples they were fighting, and they decided, instead of killing them, that they would ranch them themselves. And I was like, oh, I mean, you gotta have food somehow.
It's fresh food!
Yeah.
We keep them in the pool that was surrounded by rocks that were specifically slippery into the direction of the pond.
Yeah.
So if they try to get out, they slip back in.
Yeah.
It's a thing. And we finally get to the bottom layer, and there's this statue. We're like, okay, it's a statue. We had to put 3 masks on the statue.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Yeah.
We got these 3 different masks. Delving. We had to put them on the statue. And out popped a genie. We're like, oh, cool.
So they had built a statue to a masculinized version of the Sea Mother, which is the entity worshipped by a lot of the aquatic evil races. But it was odd that it was masculinized. There was something about that, but nobody ever figured out what that was. But the statue had pieces of it that were fitted, or that were set to be fitted with magic masks. And they found the magic masks being worn by the various priests at the various levels. Those were sort of the boss fights. And when they got all 3 of the masks and put them on, the statue opened. But the statue that they had built of the sea thing was built over the top of an existing statue, which was 3 dragon shaman, who were the last group of people to be in charge of this place, back when it was still full of dragonborn and lizard people, and they were lording over the sea folk, and all that other stuff was happening. So that led to, that when it opened, it opened to an orb that is a link and a symbol to the sort of the peace deal between the sort of agreements between the people who are in charge of the Sea Nail, which had been dragons for a long time and were primordial priests before that, and the entities of the sea, which are represented by a noble djinn of the oceanic plane. And I don't remember what they're called. Marlin or something like that. the people who are in charge are each given one wish as part of the agreement that they have in order to take care of this place and to man it as its stewards. So each of the characters was given one wish.
Yes. Fiora is saving hers, but we've already kind of decided what it is. Belfour asked for a way to get to his sister, and so he learned plane shift. But he needs to make, a fancy fork to get where she is. Also, the page told him that she was in the abyss, by the way. She got disappeared into the abyss. No one likes that.
Yeah.
I don't know what Wahid or Signius wished for. Wait, didn't Signius ask for, a good Mother's Day present? And the genie said, call your mom?
Yeah, that's happened a couple times.
Yeah.
What? No.
Something like that happened.
Yeah, I've got a battle.
And then Trixie was like, I don't want Hroxmere to control my mind ever again. And
because we got an opportunity to have a wish, and Trixie didn't really have any interests, because what did she need? She had everything she needed except for one thing, that she couldn't fucking leave the goddamn sea-nail because that fucking motherfucking vampire would start controlling her. And so she told that genie thing, I want to be immune to vampires, and that one in particular. And he's like, okay. And so now she has resistance to vampires and psionic powers, and is immune to that guy and that guy in particular.
Because fuck that guy.
Exactly.
So then we took Fiora, who's a paladin. That's nice. Oh, right. Let's not skip over the fact that Kilpie is now the master of the sea nail.
Yeah, he doesn't want to leave because he's a water elf, so his powers are based on water, and he's more powerful if he...
Well, he's really uncomfortable with, suddenly having superpowers, and also, there's this dark elf that he swears he's not gonna sleep with again, but, suddenly he finds himself having sex with him again, and he's like, how does this keep happening? And then Belfour makes beds for everyone, and now we're living in the sea nail. It's our main base! We did a dungeon, and it's our base now. It's great. We have a, that becomes a thing. We start stealing furniture. So, then we take Fiora, and I don't remember who else. And we're like, okay, let's go kill Hroxmere, because I really don't like the fact that he has that brain. That seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
So, we go to the base, which is a half-sunken house in the swamp. We start kicking everyone's asses. We radiant damage Hroxmere to death. There was this one girl that Trixie locked in a bathroom.
Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah, it was really funny. I stabbed her a number of times, and she just didn't know how to handle, because I think she was a spellcaster in melee range, and that's always bad.
And then she runs into a closet and locks herself in it, and Trixie's like, I mean, if you're not attacking me, whatever. And so we killed Hroxmere. So that's solved. Totally solved. Very, very solved.
Yeah. Or something.
Well, now we're like, okay.
As I recall, that Hroxmere crit Daniel's character, rendering him unconscious, and then he just whined and whined and whined until somebody else got him up. He didn't understand how the game worked.
It happens. I mean, this is what happens when you homebrew a system. there's not exactly an extensive network of people who know the rules, Lampay. It's like me, you, and half a... Is that accurate, Miriam? Half of Miriam understands the rules?
No, Miriam does not understand the rules at all.
So, the next bit, and by the way, guys, we made a timeline. I'm reading off of a timeline because there's no way I can keep this straight. How long have we been doing this campaign, Lampay?
3 years, I think.
Yeah, it's a big guy. Big campaign. Fun times. So according to this, the next bit of information we got was that Banar the White could tell us how to get to Shune specifically. And he's in a prison in the Blitzenfair head, which conveniently Fiora needs to go to and reapply. Be like, hey guys, I'm late. And they're how late? Several hundred years late. And they look in the files. Holy shit.
Yeah,
okay.
that was good.
Yes.
Yeah, they're like, well, I mean, it's weird, but her official rank is legit, and she's still on the books as missing in action, presumed dead, but that position was never filled by anyone else, so she just sort of went back to work. It's just bizarre.
And somewhere in that, I don't remember how the Beggar Queen contacted Trixie, but she said, to give Rubazal my regards. Rubazal, by the way, guys, is the name of the person who wields a very specific sword.
Rubazal is the name of the sword.
Yes.
But it's also sometimes, the person who carries the sword is sometimes referred to as Rubazal in certain circles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a very nice sword.
Yeah, it's a magic sword which is possessed by the guild and is assigned to one of its leaders.
So, we show up at this place, right? And they're like, yes, let's give rewards to these people who are giving the Dark Elves a pain, trouble.
Yeah.
And Belthor's like, yeah, I'm totally giving the Dark Elves trouble. But I do that. I give lots of people trouble. I'm going to tell you right now, the one group that causes the Dark Elves the most trouble is the Dark Elves.
Yes, that is true.
Facts. So, we end up in this big banquet, and we just so happen to be seated next to Rubazal. And while I remember his wife's names, it's Phoenix and Freya. I remember them. I can never remember Rubazal's real name. I think it also starts with an R, though.
Ken.
Oh, it's Ken? Yeah, that's not even an R.
His name is Kendall Rowland.
Ah, Kendall Rowland. All
Rowland.
right.
Yeah, Rowland starts with an R.
So, this guy is, he's flirting with Trixie, and then Trixie seduces him right in front of his wives. He has two. You'd think he'd be getting enough, but apparently not. And so the wives are like, well, guess what? We're seducing this cute dark elf. And Belthor's like, well, I guess I'm doing this now.
This.
That upgrades one of your...
And
Oh, well, that's not helpful.
they got pampered.
Whatever.
Belthor pampers. But he also does not
Yeah,
have
things
the endurance
that
of Rubazal
make it
because
fancier.
Belthor is not a fighter. He is a squishy sorcerer. That's a thing.
I'm not gonna. I've got 10 things now. Like, it doesn't help me here, but still, it's a 10th thing. I'm gonna lose no matter what. He's gonna just destroy me. But I got 2nd place.
So it
Sorry.
kind of ended up turning into like 2 separate orgies in 2 separate rooms with people going.
Yeah,
different
because
times.
there's a no bone zone between Belthor and Trixie.
Yeah, so no bones up. It's a thing. So then we're able to visit Banar. This Banar, the white guy, who's very, very knowledgeable.
In prison.
In prison. I get the distinct feeling he could leave whenever. Because he just, like, has things appear for him and stuff, and everyone's like, this is awkward. We should be stopping him.
Yeah.
And Belthor's just like, yeah, whatever. He's here by choice. Hey, we need information. I'm trying to... So, I figured out how to plane shift. You're a sorcerer, not a cleric. Yeah, well, I figured out how to plane shift. And, the abyss is big, so I need a way to get to where my sister is specifically. And he's like, well, you see, first you take the fancy fork. I think they need to be, like, 100 golds worth or something. I need to make an expensive fork, okay? I can do that. Expensive fork, and then I have to, get it to, align with Shune. Like a tuning fork. I tune it to Shune. And I'm like, okay, how do I do that? Well, you need, like, a personal item of hers. I'm like, but that means I have to go home. No one wants to do that. That's a pain in the ass. I also have that we go visit a Dunmar in the sewers to identify our hooch. I don't remember what the hooch was, but it was expensive booze. We found it in the sea now. We were given, like, a temporary quest to slay giants. Like, just a side quest.
Isn't Dunmar what they call the Dark Elves in Skyrim?
Well, maybe I'm wrong. It was one of the...
What about Skyrim?
What are the Dark Dwarves called?
You mean the Duergar?
Druger?
Well, sure. That's a way of pronouncing it, I'm sure.
Right, so... Dark Dwarf. He was about as unpleasant as a Dark Elf. Also, for the record, Blitzenfair, if they're dudes, ridiculous cod pieces.
Yes.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Cod pieces are a very important part of their culture. It's almost a kind of dry counter humor for them because it's so traditional. It's sort of hard to explain, but they take them very seriously.
It's just a group of people who take something that is the most ridiculous and absurd thing you've ever seen to the point where you almost feel like they're trolling you, and they take it very seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're quite offensive usually.
So now Belthor sends Banar the occasional fruit basket. As thanks. Note, Belthor never stopped that Lampay.
Okay.
Despite the retcon.
Uh-oh.
I don't think he'll mind. But, like, he might be a bit
He'll
confused.
be very confused, yeah.
So, we go back to Belthor's home. No one likes this. We start by going to Chancellor's Alley because, you know, it's something approximating safe there. Certainly better than being in the same room as anyone in Belthor's family. Except maybe Leotis. Belthor then contacts Miosh, his childhood friend, to meet them at the tree. So we meet at the tree. It is this very specific tree that we meet at. It's on the coast. It's very cool. I think there might be something magical about that was important for Thud in the basement, but that might have been a different tree. But we'll get to that too. So we go there, we contact people, we get things settled, and, you know, the small stuff settled first, because we're pretty sure that we're gonna have to get the hell out of Dodge real fast. Once things start. So Belthor doesn't even bother sneaking, right? Like, why would he bother sneaking? He's just gonna go, bluff his way through, he's not gonna stay here for long.
What the
So-
hell was I doing during this?
I think you were following me.
Yeah.
So, I open up the doors, right? To the room where my mom's in the middle of, like, having an audience with this motherfucker who's just waving the sword around like an asshole. This is Chlor. His name is Chlor. Chlor's a swear word.
Where'd the cat go? Sorry.
Like, I think it technically means claw, but it also means fucker. I think. Is that accurate, Lampe?
Something like that.
Yeah. So, there's this asshole who named himself, like, something that no one would even want to, you know, say normally. And let me tell you, Dark Elves are willing to say a lot of things. And it's in the middle of, you know, a more proper thing where you're supposed to be even less offensive than normal, and he's just being an asshole. And Belfour just flings open the door and just starts walking through, because, like, he owns the place, because, you know, this is his home. He can do that. And his mom's like, "Oh, Belfour, where you been?" And he's like, "Oh, I've just been taking over several dimensions." Right? Because he did. 4 dimensions. 1 for each level of his basement. He did that. He didn't even have to lie. And he just goes through, walks to Shune's room to get her teddy bear, and there's this ugly thing stealing her teddy bear first. This thing is called a Jaren. Mary thinks it's adorable. Lampe, would you describe the Jaren, please?
I love the Jaren! He's my baby!
I can show it to them.
Nice. I love him.
The Jaren is, as far as anybody knows, the only surviving example of a subrace of cannibal halflings who are extremely
Holy shit,
violent.
What?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, they were real nasty buggers. They were plagued by goblins and started taking on some of the way that the goblins operated culturally, which is to say the cult of Magoobliet. And so they would do unspeakable, evil, wicked things just like all the goblinoids would. And that's the reason why the Jaren wears goblin flesh for clothes. But goblins have been extinct in Ravinin for a very long time. And presumably everybody thought that the Jaren were just a story, you know, but this thing is called a Jaren and seems to be such a creature.
So, that's the Jaren. It's ugly as sin. Trixie thinks it's adorable. Now, the Jaren works for Chlor. So, after, you know, grabbing a bunch of stuff and leaving, probably irritating his mother in the process, we track down where Chlor lives and, like, bitch, give us the teddy bear. Right? And, Trixie
And then Trixie
proceeds to try and seduce Chlor, which
And it
works.
What's this try shit?
Here's the problem. Chlor's an asshole, so, he does it in a very disrespectful way, and Belfour doesn't do a lot, but he does drink Respect Women juice.
What?
He's
And
mostly useless, except for the fact that he drinks Respect Women juice. And because Chlor did not properly respect Trixie, he now hates Chlor.
no, see, here's the thing. Belfour is like, you put one hand out of line and I swear I'll fucking melt your face off. He's like holding an acid orb, and Trixie's just like into it, and he's just like, I don't know what to do here, but I want to melt his face off. So, Belthor has opinions. And he's still a bitch. Clora's still a bitch. And, also, Clora's mage was really shabby, so Belthor gave him a makeover. Get used to that. Belthor will just make clothes for people, sometimes. It's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Clora's mage looks much nicer now. So the next bit is rescuing Shune from the abyss. And it says, Zelatar in Azagrat. I have no idea what those words mean.
No, you don't. Despite having been told many times. Which is fine.
Which words?
Zelatar in Azagrat. I'm going to assume Zelatar is in fact inside Azagrat.
Yeah.
I don't remember those words.
Azagrat is a region of the abyss.
Mm-hmm.
I'm dumb and stupid and don't know things about games, and I don't know what we're talking about.
I can't say those things, you can't say those things. Hey, no using shut up in my house.
Everyone's saying bad words.
Yep.
Okay. So, we get this teddy bear, right? And Belthor makes a fork. But he also needs to make another fork. A fork to get back. So, the person who actually made that fork is Kilpie, who's staying in the sea nail because he is the master of the sea nail. You know, doing things like a weirdo. Being in charge. Belthor does not understand being in charge at all, but whatever. So we teleport directly into the space where gravity is weird. And I don't mean gravity doesn't exist and you're floating upwards. I mean you can walk off the edge of, like, a plank and now you're, like, upside down on the other side. That kind of weird. It's weird. And so we have to beat the shit out of all the demons here. I get to the middle. I open it up. And Trixie falls out, and there's tentacles everywhere, and it's just not a good time. It was not...
You said the wrong name.
Shune?
You said Trixie, or at least I heard Trixie.
I probably said Trixie, but I meant Shune.
Shune's the one who falls out of the horrible tentacles.
Yeah.
Trixie was having an amazing time.
Yeah.
Trixie stabbed a succubus, and then made out with her, and the succubus gave her her true name and asked for Trixie's, and she said Catherine.
But
And her bluff was so good, Belthor's like, bitch, you don't just tell people your true name, she's a demon! So Belthor is now convinced that Trixie's name is Catherine.
It's not.
It's not.
Trixie. With 3 X's.
So, that's a thing. And then, after we saved Shune, we had to get
I guess I'll go
back, which means we needed to find some flowing water. For reasons. It's easier to teleport back to the sea nail if you're in natural flowing water. So, we go find that. That is in Zelathor, in the Azagrat. Apparently. And, an incubus kidnaps Wahid temporarily and seduces Wahid. So,
using magic. With magic.
using magic, yes. So Wahid and Trixie are now fighting over this incubus. Trixie is not mind controlled, by the way. She's just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just like that.
And we teleport back to the sea nail, and Wahid suddenly comes back to himself and turns around and goes into another room. And it's like, Wahid, are you okay? No, I don't even have genitals! I don't know if Wahid has genitals, but you know what? Whatever. We labeled that room the Wahid's Room of Denial. And it's now his office. That's the thing. The room across from that is Trixie's sex dungeon. Don't worry about it. And now she has a vested interest in trying to figure out how to summon demons, because now she has 2 succubi and an incubus that are her bitches that she wants to summon in bang. Are we accurate so far?
More or less.
Okay. Alright. So, Trixie's, or Shune's safe. She has to recover her. Things are going fairly well. Belfour gets to, start making some things and renovating the area and, stuff. And he's like, we do not have enough furniture. This is a problem. Also, we need an easier way to get back and forth. So Trixie goes and seduces a boat off of someone. And Stuart, will paddle the boat back and forth. That's a thing. So, Lampay, here's a question. Did we get Bill before or after the ziggurat?
Before.
Okay. Then this is probably where we went and got Bill. Actually, wait. Was Bill the one who gave us information on where the Pirate King was?
Yes.
Okay. So then, this next part starts with Belfour and Wahid to diplomatize with this pirate captain, who's a dwarf, and Wahid tries to intimidate him by biting his table.
That was hilarious.
It was hilarious. He botched. It was great.
He just took a
Wait,
bite out of this guy's table.
Did he botch or nat 20? It's kind of hard to tell in that case.
He botched. The dwarf, this particular dwarf tended to deal in wood, which is not something dwarves do. Also, dwarves don't tend to live at sea, and this dwarf was a sailor, as is Wahid, by the way. But the dwarf had made the table, and it was a very ornate, decorative table. And so Wahid tried to intimidate the guy, and just on the spot was like, I know, I'll take a bite out of his table. And then he bent down and took a bite out of this guy's extremely ornate table, but it just pissed him off because he worked really hard to make that table.
And it was hilarious. And he's like, okay, guys, we want you to go rescue the Pirate King. We're like, okay. But first you need to go get Byton Bill. We're like, okay. So, Byton Bill, I believe, worked for the Bytons, right?
Well, that's why they called him Byton Bills, because he worked for Byton.
Yeah, so,
Byton are a very nasty group of pirates. They're from the, they're based out of, the Samran Empire, which is on the opposite side of Farland from where Wahid is from.
Right. So we're like, okay, we'll go track this guy down. So we go track him down, and he's surrounded by his crew. So we're like, okay, clearly we need to kidnap this guy. We start beating the shit out of people. And, when we've pissed them off enough that, and, weakened them enough that they're like, oh, we need to, run away, Bill's like, yes, everyone, run away! I will slow them down for you! Shoots into the air and whatnot. And then once they were gone, he's like, yeah, I'm coming with you. See, he was trying to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, okay, so what do we call you? He's like, I don't know, Bill, William, Wilhelmina, doesn't matter. You see, Bill, or as we call them, Wilhelmina, can shapeshift between being male and female because he is he a nymphling?
Not
Yeah,
not
isn't
very
it-
many nymphlings can do that, but Bill can.
So he is
It's very similar to the gift of Corellin.
So he is both gender and biosex fluid. That's just a thing. Fun time. So now we have him, and he's like, oh, okay. So this Pirate King guy was taken custody into the White City. So now we have to go to the White City. Note, White City is not the Black City. Right?
The what?
Now, Wahid's from the Black City, right?
Yes.
Well, this is the White City.
Mhm.
They're two different cities. They are not the same.
You can't get
I'm just pointing that out.
much more different.
In fact, if my mental map is right, they're kind of across this channel from each other.
No. The Black City is in Upper Unip. This is Greater Mithla.
Well, yeah, but there's like, okay,
Or is in Farland, I should say. Farland is the continent north of this one.
so you said that Wahid was from the continent to the northwest, and west is on the left.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the continent to the north of this one on the world
Okay.
map.
All right, he's from Black City. You said it was south of that little tentacle thing.
Yeah.
Tentacle Peninsula. And south of that, a bit of a ways. And the White City is kind of on... There's that... It's kind of near where that river goes in, on the north, if I remember correctly, right?
Here, I'll show you.
Yeah, you're going to have to pull wherever that is down to where Blitzenfair is now.
So, let's shut off the overlay. This is Torl, and this is the where the Black City is located, is right here, and that's where Wahid is from. Shayran is over here, and this is the Samarin Empire, and the Samarin Empire is where those other pirates are based. Is from between the Samarin Empire and the Brain. And they just like cause a lot of chaos and shit all around this kind of region, mostly. And Greater Mithla is, as you can see here, to the south of it.
And I believe the White City is kind of on the north edge, right?
Yeah, the White City is here.
Along with another not Blitzenfair group of mercenaries.
Although I seem to remember the White City being on the coast. It seems pretty far from the coast to me.
That's what I remember too. But whatever. You can move it. It's your map. So we go to this White City. Except that we can't just go because I'm a dark elf and they're racist against dark elves. With good reason.
Well, I
Don't
mean,
get me wrong, there's a very good reason for that.
who's not?
Do you know who's most racist against dark elves? Dark elves.
Yeah, because they know better. They know not to trust people like them.
I can't believe you did that! Darling, I'm a dark elf. And everyone laughs. So, we're in the White City. I have to disguise myself, and also Shune, who is now feeling much better, and not completely crazy. And we're like, okay, so elves can be all sorts of subtypes, right? That's just a thing. If they hang out in an area long enough, they eventually gain that power. So, you get water elves, and you get like volcano elves, and you get all sorts of elves. And Belthor's like, well, you do acid things. I'm gonna just, you know, use prestidigitation to make myself look green, and also Shune. But one of us got a item that just changes your skin color. And so we went disguised as acid elves. Acid elves don't exist. That's silly. The closest thing to an acid elf, which I got Lampade to invent by badgering him enough, because I'm an asshole, are the swamp elves, who have not made an appearance in anything as far as I'm aware. But we disguise ourselves as acid elves, and the people of the White City are absolutely fooled, but they also seem to be rather dumbasses. And we end up, it's like, okay, we need to be associated with official mercenaries in order to do this, and we're like, why don't we just pick up Fiora again? So we pick up Fiora again. And we go to this place. And I don't remember a lot of what happened, but yeah, Trix is a great performer, and Shune being like, yeah, she rarely ever gets blood on anyone. That happened. It was funny. She, I think she was botching diplomacy there. We had this meeting in a grand hall, and then we were put on a boat to transport the Pirate King somewhere, who is currently chained up in, probably not the bilges, but, you know, pretty low down, and he's inside a magic circle and all that. Was he an elf? I seem to remember him being an elf.
Who was an elf?
Wood elf? Yeah, that seems right.
Who was an elf?
So he's trying to get people to play cards with him. Mostly like the first mate of the boat. And we're like, hey, we'll play cards with you. So Belthor, Trixie, the Pirate King, and Fiora, who's a paladin. Oh, by the way, we didn't mention this. Fiora is a paladin of beauty. We're all playing cards. Now, the Pirate King starts cheating and just bullshitting the rules. And Belthor knows how this goes, and Trixie knows how this goes. So they just start cheating and bullshitting the rules. The important part is not getting caught. Fiora is trying to keep track of all of these bullshit rules, and by the time she notices that, you know, there are 3 times as many cards as they started with, she's like, wait a minute, everyone's cheating! And it was hilarious, and she woke up on a bed of cards.
Yeah, it was funny.
And by the time we woke up in the morning, the pirates had taken over the boat. Because you see, they happened to hire a boat that just so happened to have the Pirate King's old crew on it. Coincidentally. And so, they're taking us to this mysterious island that you can't get to unless you've already been there before, or know how to get to it, or whatever, you know. Classic pirate bullshit. And, we have rough weather and whatnot. And this is where the boat I drew came in. See, we ended up kind of sort of shipwrecked on this island. They have to do repairs while we go adventuring. And throughout this entire thing, Lampay hadn't changed the map, so we were still in the White City. So I started just drawing an ocean, and then a boat, and then a beach, and there's a little crab on it, and yeah. It's real cool.
That's where this came from.
Yeah. I think I did a very good job considering. That's like a paint job. I have an improved version that I appear to have spruced up in MS Paint, but Yeah. I'm rather proud of that rather shitty picture. So, this is where we go through the ziggurat. Now, this is also the place where, like, before we were kind of trying to steal furniture, now it's getting ridiculous. We're really trying to steal furniture. And unfortunately, we weren't able to steal the golems. But we did go through, steal a bunch of their furniture. There are really, really ancient dark elves here, and really super ancient dark elf magic. How ancient? So ancient that the different types of magic didn't exist yet. It was all just magic. That's weird. So, Belthor's getting theories now. He's decided to start calling it omnimagical bullshit. When the different schools of magic... schools aren't right. Wizards have schools, and that's all arcane. The different power sources start melding together, and you can't find the seams. Then it's omnimagic bullshit. And he's like, yeah, okay, that's the thing. We find a push broom, a magical push broom. We find souls that are trapped and being tortured for eternity because dark elves are assholes. We find a lot of books, and this is the book. One of the books is what told us that the Beggar Queen, who was, old, of mysterious age, she's been around for a while, no one really knows how long. This one's like, oh yeah, no one knows how long, but it's been at least like 3,000 years, and we're like, whoa. That's a lot. That's not normal. That's where we started learning that she was a fairy queen. Mm-hmm. She hadn't even told Trick. But that's fun. I did shove a bunch of people because, like, we kicked these people's asses and we left them and continued, and then they showed back up and we're like, well, fuck it. So then I, like, shoved them in what I assume was a toilet. It was like a pool that was constantly spinning. So I put them on, like, an internal swirly so they continuously drown because I'm an asshole. Again. And we get a bunch of loot. Miri uses her bag of magic beans for the first time. That's important. Because we cracked this gargoyle.
No, yeah, the most important part of that... Good God, 1 second. Hey! Sorry about that. So, the most important thing there is that we had cracked open a gargoyle, and I had put a bean on the end of my arrow and shot it into the crack on the gargoyle to plant it into the gargoyle.
And...
very explicitly.
Then it turned into a badger, and the gargoyle freaked out.
Yeah.
Another important part is the mercenaries we came in with. There were 2 of them, but there's only one I remember clearly, and that's the guy with the scorpion shirt. And by scorpion shirt, I mean a size medium scorpion that he wore as a shirt. It was his familiar or whatever. And he was convinced I was a dark elf, pretending to not be a dark elf. And, he was right, but I have to pretend. And there was this one specific part where Belthor walks straight into a trap. By the way, Belthor keeps on walking straight into traps and opening doors, and he's a sorcerer. He should not be doing that.
It's hilarious.
Fortunately, the specific trap is poison. And sorcerers get resistance to, two types of damage, and I picked acid and poison. Seemed reasonable to go together. And, yeah. So, I walk in that, and I'm like, I'm fine, but I'm like, hey guys, don't walk in at that, it'll kill you. And this is a dark elf dungeon. And the guy's like, oh yeah, not a dark elf, I really believe you. I'm like, no dude, that would have killed a dark elf if I was a dark elf. And he's like, and he looks at, like, his buddy, and his buddy's like, well, he's right. That would normally kill a dark elf. And, unfortunately, a part of the library got permalocked on both sides. Because on one side, we went through a puzzle, and then Miriam removed a piece of the puzzle, and it disintegrated. On the other side, a bookshelf fell, and the door opens inward. So now no one can get to those books, but honestly, that's probably a good thing. They're full of things you don't want to think about. And then we leave the ziggurat. Miriam, is there anything else you remember about the ziggurat? Are you muted?
Well, there were dogs earlier, so I'm not surprised if she did mute herself.
She is muted.
I don't know.
Okay. Lampay, is there anything you would like to add to the ziggurat?
A big thing about what the ziggurat's about is that it is a place that held a lot of lost information. It's from the time before the war when the Dark Elves were first exploring what would eventually become their kind of magic. It also showed that the Dark Elves didn't distinguish between arcane and divine magic, which is actually more of a human tradition. A lot of elves don't, because Corellon Larathian is a divine figure, you know, from another who grants powers from another plane, so it's a literally divine, but also taught the elves arcane magic. So for them, they're sort of connected in that way. And of course, there was the mural that Chlor had defaced because Chlor had been there.
Ah, yes, Chlor. This motherfucker won't leave us alone, by the way.
Well, he
That's a
was
thing.
there
Well,
first.
Trixie doesn't mind. Yeah, Trixie doesn't mind.
So, we leave and end up in this mansion. And there's this guy, and he's very fancy and very magical, and he has these 3 scantily clad girls that we are being led to believe he made, possibly, specifically to marry his sons, who are not all about that for some reason. That's weird. But to be fair, these girls do not seem to have much of a mind of their own. So, whatever. And he's like, you should spend the night. And we're like, we don't know if we trust this.
That was
Like, don't let my son's in the house.
that
We're
was
like, yeah, sure.
Mortheim Ansler. That was Mortheim Manor.
Well, see, the thing is, he didn't introduce himself by name. And all I knew was that this was a ridiculously powerful elf.
When did you find out who
Did
he
we
was?
think he was Corellon Larathian at one point?
Okay, so here's the thing. Belthor was like, hey, Shune, do you think this guy is that one guy? What guy? The progenitor of the elves. You mean Corellon Larathian? And Belthor's like, yeah, that guy. Belthor gives 0 fucks about any of his progenitors. 0.
True.
None of them. That is one of the most dark elf things about him.
Yeah.
Oh, so you created me. Well, fuck you. I'm gonna do my own thing. And, so yeah. Also, he had us sit in chairs, and everyone found them uncomfortable except for me, because I'm a dark elf. Or whatever. That was also interesting.
Oh yeah, those were the uncomfortable chairs, and then there were the comfortable.
Yeah. But the comfortable chairs come later, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think those are in the Chaos realm. So we spend the night, and the sons do end up in the house at some point, and then suddenly time does something, and apparently this house has been destroyed for, like, millennia, probably. You know how it is. Time bullshit. Didn't trust it to begin with, so whatever. We loot the place, or what's left of it.
No, it's
And
you came and went from a demiplane.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the demiplane, the manor exists within the demiplane, so within the demiplane the manor is intact. But outside of the demiplane, in the actual prime material plane, in the area where the manor stood, it's long since been destroyed.
That makes a lot more sense.
I don't know if you guys ever really figured that out.
No, I don't.
I don't think we did. I do know that there was a tunnel for smugglers,
Yes.
and we determined that in the Dark Elf language, the term for basement and the term for, like, smuggler's den is, like, the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really funny.
And I think we took some of those sons with us, right? Did we get all 3 of them?
No, we only met 2 of them.
Okay.
No, you did eventually get all 3 on the boat.
We did?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I don't
So they've been released from this island, and we're like, hey guys, we're back. And they're like, yeah, you're back. Come on, let's go. So we've rescued the Pirate King by going through the ziggurat. I don't know. That was kind of confusing.
Each of the sons were, they're immortal, but they were positioned in some way that kept them from,
Regenerating?
Yeah, from coming back. They were, like, held dead somehow. You unleashed them one at a time. One of them was impaled. One of them was, like, in a guillotine, and one of them was, I think, nailed to a stake. That was the one in the smuggling tunnel. Was the one that was nailed to the wall.
Okay. So we're going to have to get sidetracked for a little bit, because I don't remember when exactly Strong Hit and Melodia showed up. But I think they showed up during this time while Trixie and Belthor were busy elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so they're from Fire Country.
So basically what ended up happening is that we saved Shune, and Belthor is actually from a story that Shara tossing back and forth in her brain. And I was like, that's really cool. I should try doing that. And so I decided that I would make a character for that purpose so that we could do another plot that had some basing in some other stuff.
I actually made Belthor as a one-off character as a DM. I made him, and then he turned into one of the players' cohorts, and then I got attached.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But continue, Miriam.
Nope, I lost it.
You made Melodia because she was from one of the stories you were writing.
Yeah, so I was like, let's try and see what happens to the plot if we do that. And so I made her with no intentions onto what would happen, but with the knowledge that she was based off of that character. And then Lampay went wild with her, and she and because she's a bird, but like he doesn't have a system for like sirens or harpies. And so we made her in the most interesting fashion, which is that she was a bird that learned how to take the shape of a human, and shenanigans. And it was very good, and that's why we made her. That's where she came into play.
Yeah. I'm trying to... I was going to say something and then I can't remember.
Now explain Strong Hit Lava Forge.
So, Strong Hit Lava Forge is dwarf who makes weapons, and they're a ranger, and they can summon a forge made of lava wherever they are. That's real cool.
Thank you for your time.
Like, comment, subscribe, and share.